I agree with that.
And then, okay.
Yeah.
Leslie, go on.
Yeah.
He's there.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah.
So that in mind, it becomes the greatest education because it becomes tangible. I mean, we have great case studies in Africa already. Okay, we have the investment of super sports in South African Premier Soccer League, right?
Right.
Look at how it's transformed that league. We have super sports, various interventions across Africa that actually have mattered to those sports. Okay, and another great example is what's going on in Rwanda and with their cycling, and how the government rallied behind that federation, right? In kind of developing the Rwanda tour to be, I mean, it's not a world-class entity yet, but it's going there.
Right.
So they're really great case studies, but it's not just one entity that acts on its own. It's a collective of these key stakeholders that have one mindset and one vision to achieve something.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Yes, the catalyst, as a catalyst, is actually omnipotent. It's a very powerful tool, right? It's a very powerful tool. But the media on its own is not going to do anything without the other key stakeholders being on board.
Yeah, but for sure.
I think the media on its own, but I think the media as a catalyst, as a way to link everything up and get the process going is what I think. But I agree, not the media. Everybody's got to buy and got to come on board. You're right.
Yeah. So in other words, we all of us here basically are in the African sports media space, and I think in a sense people recognize us across the board as people who kind of play a role. So definitely. We have a significant role to play in helping to transform the landscape at this stage. In the year 2000, the United Nations came up with the Sustainable Development Goals, in which they classified sports as a tool to help people to remove, uplift people out of poverty. Gradually over the years, eventually they took that out of the equation. We have the Millennium Development. I mean what you call it, goals now. What are they? They're no longer the sustainable. Those were the Millennium Development Goals. Now we have the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm sorry, I got my thoughts mixed up there. Yes, yeah, those were the Millennium Development Goals. Now we have the Sustainable Development Goals. In the Millennium Development Goals was where we had sports as a tool for uplifting people out of poverty. Eventually, they created the Sports for Development Office, which was led by Mr. Wilfred Limke at the time at the UN. And eventually they took that away and transferred that over to the IOC. That office is with the IOC now. What is the IOC doing towards empowering nations across the board? We're looking at things now from not just from what we're doing locally within each country or what each individual is doing, or from our perspective as media, but also what the international community is doing towards helping African nations understand the value of what we have and how to use it to help our nations, our countries, develop using different aspects of our socioeconomic livelihood to bring value to our lives.
I think let me just jump in. Let me just jump in. I think that kind of thinking. That sports is a tool for social development and for economic development is a breath of fresh air to my ears. It's a breath of fresh air.
Right.
But at the same time, what these offices, that is kind of universal or global offices are, they are not there for just for education. They are there to invest or to partner with programs that are running already. Now, in what you find in a lot of African countries is that these programs are non-existent.
Yes.
Right? These programs have not been started. Okay? Where, if I'm not even saying programs that have been implemented, but just concepts are not there yet. and you go to places like Singapore or Japan, as a country, they have a sports investment perspective, right? They have a sports vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they want to take the country, what role does sports play in its own economic development, right? And we as African people, if we don't have those kind of initiatives, just those visions, where we actually pen it down and put it to paper. I mean, I'm from South Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like Gary.
Right.
We, in 2011, if I'm not mistaken, a vision document, which was called the National Development Plan, right,
Mm-hmm.
was published by the government. You know, it was a thick document with more than 500 pages, or even close to 1,000 pages. But sports, if it had 3 or 4 pages on that, you'd be very lucky.
Wow. Wow.
Right? I'm talking about
right? And South Africa has a fairly decent developed sports infrastructure already.
I know.
So what you're saying is that about South Africa, what it must be like elsewhere.
Exactly.
What you just said there now is very, very, on point actually, and that's a key thing. You hear a lot of these lofty goals being stated out there, and the high echelons of the big groupings and things like that. But on the ground, it's a different story. You're absolutely right.
It's a different story, right? Because on the ground, it's that key thing, consciousness. Because Japan could do it, Singapore could do it, maybe New Zealand could do it, because that culture and consciousness is there.
Yeah.
Is it once again, what I was saying there, is it once again left up to us media to bring this out to our folks and let them understand and explain this to them? Because a lot of these folks will not be able to research things like this and understand that, yeah, you can actually start a program and you potentially could get a grant for what you're doing, and this is how you can access these grants and how you can step up and do. I mean, we're not just talking about getting people to know or finding ways to make a living, but finding a way to make a living with a meaning, because obviously we don't. Yeah. We don't want to bring people into the sports space all over again for the wrong reasons, because obviously when you bring them in with the wrong reasons a lot of times, then we end up losing focus on what we're supposed to be doing, which is to...
Unfortunately, that's the problem, Leslie. There's too many people have been running various sports across the continent who've been there for all the wrong reasons, and that's part of the problem why we haven't been able to develop as well as we could have.
Right.
I think for us, as media practitioners and media professionals, yes, we have a role to play in terms of kind of changing mindsets and kind of changing how people perceive sports. Yes, influencing the federations and all key stakeholders around. But at the same time, we gotta be there on the ground, right? Not just as broadcasters or journalists or as distributors, and we gotta be there on the ground, trying to make sure we have influence on event management. Because event management of sports events is very important, right? We have to influence on that. We have to have influence on the federations themselves. They have some influence, and talk to them and actually see the value. Or for them to invest in sports, but for them to be empowering sports events, and also to understand the value of media. Because the thing is, the cash cow of sports is media.
Right.
Everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to some extent in Africa, we have lots of events, but they have limited media space or airtime, right?
Right.
Limited. There are great events out there.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Kenya about 3 weeks ago, okay, and they have a grade 7 tournament, right? And Kenyan rugby 7 is one of the top teams in the world, right?
Right.
Everybody knows it, right? And this is where the top talent for those national team comes from those tournaments, but it was not on TV.
Wow.
Tim, you're talking about the Safari Sevens.
It used to be Safari Sevens, but it's no longer Safari Sevens.
What's it called now?
No, it's got no sponsor.
Oh
Oh,
boy.
you're talking about the university one?
No, not the university one, the professional one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But, traditionally it was Safari. It was traditionally called Safari Sevens. That was the name before that sponsor, and it used to be. I mean, it still is it's one of the great rugby tournaments in the world, I think. And I used to attend it regularly. And actually, we did the first time. We were the first people to put it on television on SuperSport. We covered it for a couple of years, and then when I was at Zuku, I did the first time we broadcast that on that tournament live in HD, in fact. But the sad thing about that broadcast was that the same day that tournament sort of kicked off, and I finally got it onto a free-to-air network as well, was the day of the Westgate Mall terrorist attack. And,
Wow.
and all the TV shut down and got moved over to covering the whole siege at the Westgate Mall. And it's sort of tragic what happened at Westgate Mall, but that was the last time ever that the Safari Sevens ever appeared on Kenyan television.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Really sad.
was
What-
there. I went to watch one afternoon in Kenya.
Yeah,
Saturday afternoon, I went to see it. There were no cameras there.
yeah.
No production whatsoever. And this is a premium sports event.
Content. Yeah.
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 But Tim,
Yeah.
I just want to also pick up on something there as well. When we talk about media, is that when you talk about to a lot of people, when we think about media, we think about the television media, who's in media, cameramen, producers, directors, channel managers, all of those kinds of things. If you ask most people on the ground, when you say to them, sports media, they think of a journalist writing for a newspaper or talking on a radio.
That's
They
it.
don't think of, there's a separation
Yes.
that exists. And they will say, and the problem with this is that if you write for a newspaper, you write a report cover something, you say the media are covering it. Yes, we've got all the journalists from all the papers are here. The media are covering it. It costs very little to have a print journalist to sit and watch a game and write a report about it.
Right.
It costs a lot of money and investment to put cameras and production into that. That's why you need your sponsorship to come in. That's where you need your vision. But
Yeah.
once you get that happening, it changes the whole picture. And without it, though, and that's the problem, is that people don't understand the value.
Yes. That's this.
Into the game.
Yeah, it's a great segue. It's a great segue into what I wanted to bring, because like I said, I promised we're going to talk a little bit about the problem of sponsorship and lack thereof across the continent. Obviously, with the background information that we've given, with just the key problems across Africa or as a whole, in understanding the value, from its very basic tenets to the sophistication of what we're going to talk about now, which is sponsorship and what it takes to achieve or acquire sponsorship. I think that's a whole nother ball game. The thing, like Temba was just saying, with the rugby sevens in Kenya, and when we look at other sports properties across Africa, and especially like the football leagues, we see a significant lack in funding, in sponsorship. One of the things, in fact, I was looking at jersey sponsorship across Africa, and in relations to the major sports brands across the world, the major sportswear brands. I think as of date, there are only 10 to 12 nations that do actually have a major sponsorship from either Puma, Nike, or Adidas. Out of 55 countries, that's a slap in the face. That's a shame, if I could say that. But we see the issues now coming in from the very basic level, the grassroots level. Temba just outlined that there was such a premium event, could be premium content, sports content, that a TV network could bring to folks in their living rooms, including the Nigerian Premier Football League that Gary, we talked about at some point in time, which was lacking in sponsorship. I would imagine a nation like Nigeria with almost 180 million people. Well, normally it's estimated that there's over 200 million Nigerians globally, at home and abroad. And that's a huge population right there by itself. Uh,
You know, it's massive.
it's massive. Just to imagine that.